research director here for the DSL, and so I want to draw your attention to the sign-in sheet. That's how we can keep you in touch with some things, so please make sure you do. And also over there you'll find not only a schedule for the rest of the day's events, but our fabulous new stickers, which you gotta have to stick on your laptops. That's cool. And then we've got a postcard over here that Perry Collins has created for some of the resources available from the libraries related to your scholarly activities. So whether it's data management or anything, grab one of those as well. We are excited for today's programming, and I'm going to let Angie Gibson introduce the speaker today, but I wanted to head you up on some things that are coming pretty quickly here. So as you know, we'll have our faculty fellowship application process opening up again in the spring, early spring. Usually it was around in February sometime, but we'll announce a specific deadline shortly. But one of the things that we found really useful last year was we ended up having consultations here in the DSL with almost 24 different people about their projects and if they're a good fit for the fellowship program, or even what kind of resources are on campus. And after that, we ended up with about half of them applying, and we ended up funding 5 fellows, as you know. They're featured on our DSL website. Make sure you check that out, but just know that the information on the fellowship applications will be updated here shortly. And we'll send out some information to our list. Make sure you follow us on our social media. You'll see the links on the website there. That's one way to know about that kind of stuff. But I'm inviting you to contact us to make an appointment to talk about your ideas. And they can be ideas. They don't have to be fully formed, ready to go, fundable projects. These can be a process of your thinking about how would I get to where I could take advantage of a fellowship, or what are some of the possibilities for external funding that I could use the fellowship to create a prototype, to create a proof of concept that would help me get funded externally. That's what we're here to help you with. Again, we're a hub to try to connect you to the resources that you need to do what you want to do. We also want to give you ideas, and so that's why we do these digital feeds. There'll be 3 more in the spring, and we'll announce the topics of those shortly, and then throughout the early part of the year. And there'll also be a workshop. Last spring we did an afternoon workshop on network visualization tools with Jason Hepler that was really well attended. A lot of people enjoyed it. So we're still taking some ideas and trying to decide what workshop we're going to do this spring. But 3 feeds and a workshop in the spring, so make sure you're on our list. So without further ado, let me turn it over to Angie Gibson, and she can tell you about today's events.
Well, thank you guys for coming. We always try to do something for GIS Day. Sometimes it's a little smaller, sometimes a little bigger. We kind of went all out today with the lunch, the poster, and the other presentation. But I appreciate you guys showing up. Today we have Patricia Carbajales-Dale. She comes to us from Clemson University, and I'll make sure I get your job title correctly. She is currently the co-director of the Center of Excellence and also manages the Geospatial Technology Center, correct? Mm-hmm. And previously she was with Stanford, and she helped create the Stanford Geospatial Center and was also a lecturer at Stanford. So if you have to welcome Patricia.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure being here. It's the first year in, I think, 12 years that I'm not celebrating GIS Day at my home university, so I'm really, truly excited to be here. You've been fantastic hosts, so I really appreciate it. Angie, Dr. Seffel, the Digital Scholarship Lab, and the libraries. I'm bringing a lot of knowledge already that I've been gathering from you, and I'm looking forward to learn as well as I share my experience with you and take it back to Clemson. So for this talk, I'm going to be talking about the experience that I have with 2 very different campuses establishing a geospatial center of support for the entire university. One is, the first one that I established was at Stanford University on the Bay Area, California, private university. The other one is at Clemson, where I currently am, public university, And what they both have in common is that we do not have a GIS department or a geography department or degrees. We have faculty that have GIS classes in different departments. Since GIS is not a career, GIS is integrated into disciplines. So that might be a little bit different from what you currently have here. So I'm just going to get started with the Stanford. So I was there from 2009 to 2014. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the evolution. At Stanford, I was actually hired as being part of the libraries, so very similar to Angie here. And I'll tell you a little bit about what the program at GIS at Stanford was. We have, as I mentioned before, we had a few GIS courses. The main was the fundamental of GIS that was offered through the School of Earth Sciences. And that was basically the only class that students had, undergraduates or graduates at the school at the time, to learn GIS. GIS for Good is a class that I created out of taking over that class. And then we have a special approaches in social sciences that was political science and anthropology that we supported. Then we had, at the time when I arrived, there was just what we call a GIS lab. It was 3 to 4 computers inside of the library, a very small space inside of one of the libraries. So Stanford had like 18, 19 different libraries. And so we were located in the earth sciences that had the big map collection. At the time, we had like 270,000 paper maps. And so traditionally it was there. And then there was a lot of research happening also. So those 3 tiers are what I will be talking about, what the GIS program at Stanford was. At the time, there was not a center per se, and I also will talk about why do we create these centers, why give it that identity, that branding, and what might be a little bit different from having a center to just having what we call a GIS lab. And so the GIS lab at Stanford started in the 1990s, and it was in the School of Earth Sciences because they were offering a GIS course. They were managing their licenses themselves. Everybody, as GIS started to become more popular, the school and the professors couldn't manage the license for the rest of the university, so they passed it to the library. And that's why it's been traditionally still there inside of the School of Earth Sciences library. What they wanted, what the faculty requested, was a workspace where they could send to students and also somebody who will be administering the license and also helping with data. And so the libraries came together and they say, okay, we'll have a map librarian and also a GIS technician for 20 hours a week. That's what we had in terms of staff from 1990 to 1996. And then in 2000, up to 1996 to 2010, they just have what they call a GIS student assistant. It was basically somebody for like 14 hours to just start helping with consultations. I arrived in 2009, and when I arrived at Stanford, my supervisor, who was the head of the Earth Sciences Library, gave me 2 choices. She said, look, you had 2 predecessors before. You could work in projects with faculty. And the GIS manager that was there before you should work on 4 or 5 projects. She even travel, to all these countries, kind of being very involved in the projects, and that's fine. Or you can do more outreach workshops and kind of get the word out and try to support those. She gave me complete freedom and said, I'm okay with either or, and you see what worked best. And so after a couple of months, I noticed that I was helping like 4 to 5 students, usually at the PhD level, but there was a lot of need for the undergraduates and for a lot of disciplines to learn about GIS. So I started offering like workshops, sessions, consultations. So what ended up happening is that we started looking at the map collection, and as part of the library's digital scholarship and data discovery is a big part of what the libraries do. So we hired a developer to help us with this initiative called the Open Geo Portal, which is an initiative where all of the libraries can put their geospatial data, their GIS data, into these servers that can harvest each other metadata. And so we are able, right now you can go to one of these portals through a browser and get all of the data from MIT or Harvard or Stanford or Berkeley or Tufts in order to be able to download, preview, or use your data for your projects. So we bumped up the GIS student assistantships, and then we got a developer. It was still not enough, and so in 2012 we finally made the call to hire a GIS specialist that will help me with all of the consultations, class support, because we started booming in terms of demand. Then in 2014, to develop that Open Geo Portal initiative, we got a second developer, and then we finally got a metadata specialist that will help us with very important metadata, right? And so that's kind of a little bit of the evolution. I left in October 2014, and I think they're pretty much, at the same pace as they are right now. So why would it make sense? A lot of people ask us, like, why GIS through the libraries, And so this is kind of some of the major points that I think it makes sense for GIS support services to be in the library. Data is a natural fit. Metadata is very important for us. We have experience cataloging, and so I think it's a perfect fit. And data is, depending on the discipline, 80% to 90% of our consultations are about helping find data for GIS projects. I think also, I think Angie does the same thing. We manage the license. So the license traditionally might be in IT, but it has gotten so complex that what I've seen across the country is, or there's a faculty person who takes care of the license, and I see them in San Diego every year. They're overwhelmed. It's not part of their job. Or IT, there's an IT person who doesn't understand GIS, and everybody's very unhappy. And so usually it comes to the libraries or one of the centers when we truly understand the software, and especially right now with cloud services, what is a credit, how many can I give, can you geocode or not, things like that. It's quite complex. So that's another reason. Another reason that I thought was very interesting for me was that network of subject librarians. So I think of them as advocates, as ambassadors, as partners. So what we will do is, like, we will partner with the government document librarian or with the social science and data services librarians, and then we'll do workshops together. We support projects. And so I thought that was we will not offer just one service where everything finished in GIS, but we have all these avenues, as well as the data specialist. We also had an image team. What that means is that our image for our computers was very clean. We keep an eye as, like, there's a new version of Google Earth, there's a new version of ArcGIS coming in. We test it, we run it, and then what happened at Stanford is that other departments that have their own GIS labs, they started hiring the libraries to have the same image, so they didn't need to worry about installing and the licensing and all that. So we kind of expanded, and our little GIS lab was exactly the one that dictated the image for all of the GIS labs on campus, which it was bringing down the burden from labs and faculty and departments on campus to keep up with that, because it's very time consuming. And as you know, there's 10.6 that came out already, and they drive us crazy with all those. So if we can take that burden out of the faculty and the departments, then that means we're doing our job. The other thing is that the libraries, at the time, I don't know, how it works here, but we had our own IT too, and our own developers who would allow us to create, like, data portals and things like that much easier, and they would be available to work on projects. So I thought that was a good reason. Those were very good reasons to explain why we had GIS support services through the libraries. These are some of the overall categories that we had. One thing that we had also through the libraries was this ATS model, and I think Douglas mentioned Jason Helpler. So ATS were technology specialists. I don't remember. They were half of their salary was from the libraries, and half of their salary was paid by the department. So they were librarians or library specialists that were embedded into departments to work with faculty on projects and teaching. And I thought that was a fantastic model of getting the libraries closer to the faculty in the departments. And I think one thing that I thought it was a bonus that we kind of discovered was like that multidisciplinary research. So we were talking about over breakfast how Angie is a matchmaker. She has the pulse of the research that is going on related to GIS, who's doing this, and she makes those connections. She facilitates multidisciplinary team. Oh, there's somebody in anthropology and there's somebody in history. Do you know they're working on this together? So it's really a place where you can have statistics meet data visualization, meet GIS, meet data science coming together in analytics. The other thing is that we avoid redundancy, especially with data. So at Clemson, for example, we purchased some crime data for the past 5 years. If we purchase the data, that means the departments don't have to be purchasing the data or the software, which means that we save not only time and effort or funds, but also we are allowing for that redundancy to diminish the type of barriers of communication that we have on who has what, when did they store it, and things like that. So I think there is a strong case for us to have centralized services in terms of redundancy, and not just financial redundancy in terms of purchasing data sets. So these are kind of the center services that we had, very similar to what you have here, what we have at Clemson. We did instruction, consultation, data services, software and tech support, and then we offered a small place. This is our lab. When I got there, it was only 4 computers. When I left, it was 9 computers, and then we had a new training room. But it was quite small compared to, for example, what you have. And then we did a little bit of innovation. And I'll show you in a second, we did for us to be able to support faculty and students and research, the technology changes so much. We need to be able to test the technology. I cannot tell you, well, this is going to take you 2 months. You're going to, if I don't test it myself. And we do a lot of training and professional development, but we need real projects a lot of time to test. And so that's what we do in our downtime, which barely happens, but sometimes in summer or whenever we can, we really need to test those. And so we use the campus, usually our own campuses, as a test bed. So we did a campus-based map project. Let me see if I can pull it up here. And so this is in, bear with me, 2012, 2013. Our GIS Online was still kind of brand new. And so we started testing our GIS Online at the time so we could just support story maps and cloud services. And so one of the first things that we tested the map tour that you will see some of them that students have been using. And so this is, for example, the librarians on campus. Like I said, we have many different libraries, and they are located in different places. So what we did is we interview each one of the librarians, so you can hear it here. So it tells you where he is and then a little bit about him. You will see this theme also I did at Clemson. Although I don't work for the libraries, I'm located in the libraries through a partnership. The first thing that I do to test a project is what can I do for the libraries with GIS. And so this is one example, and then I want to show you the historic photo map tour, because this is kind of a 2D version of, they're not, the hyperlinks are not working right now. We have historical photos through the collection, and I think they move it, this was 5 years ago, and we wanted to highlight the catalog in the special collections that we have. Anyway, this is 2D. You will see a new version that we did in 3D at Clemson with the special collections as well. And then let me bring back the PowerPoint. Here. And so through instruction, what we mean by instruction is we had a series of workshops that we will offer. Sometimes will be workshops on their own when students will come and take the workshops. Sometimes we'll do workshops as part of a class or a summer research college. So in the summer we have a lot of youth camps, and so we will do a lot of those training sessions. We'll also do lectures or co-lecturing or being the GIS instructor. We do hands-on workshop, whatever the faculty needs, and we do the same thing at Clemson. Do you need one session or two? Do you need 5? Do you need a whole class? And so we try to accommodate through those. And so this kind of is where we got at towards the end. Like we will support around 15 classes a year, do around 100 workshops, and then we will train around 800 faculty, staff, and students through those services. We'll also do consultation services, but we will have a prerequisite because consultations will be one-on-one appointments. We wanted to make sure that we didn't spend our time saying, click here, open our map, go there. So we will have a prerequisite that is take the Intro to GIS workshop, 3 hours hands-on, or take the intro online, and then you will be eligible for consultation. So then the consultation is much better because then we kind of move forward the project. These are the different types of consultations that we had at the time. So from project management, what is your timeline? That's how we start any consultation. How much knowledge you have? How much time do you have to spend on this? And then we give them a reasonable expectation of what they can accomplish with that time. And so these are the number of departments and faculty and consultations that we have. We had a full team of, we have students, interns that really help us. One thing that I thought worked really well, it was the demand, because we don't have a GIS program or a geography department. The demand got to be so big that we partnered with the School of Earth Sciences and say, if you give us 2 students, 2 TA ships, I'll train them, I manage them, but can they do consultations just for your school? Because we had one intern that could have to take consultations from the medical school to the business school to the law school to the political science. It's very overwhelming for students. It's overwhelming for us, but even for students. And so for them, it was great because they will get the students trained, and then the knowledge will be back to the college itself. So I think that's a model that I really want to explore more at Clemson as well. At Clemson, we have an internship program called I don't remember what the name is, but it's an internship program where through a grant that they got, they pay half of their salary. Clemson pays half of their salary, and we pay half of the salary. So our students get paid $12 an hour, and I pay $6. And so it works very well because it really encourages to hire the students, but they have a very decent salary per hour, but we only pay half. And so that's something that we didn't have at Stanford, for example. 2 students were more expensive that way, but at Clemson, that program works really well. We also, data services was a very important part of what we offer through the libraries, and that's what we had these new positions coming up to support those, the discovery, the storage, and the collection of all of our geospatial data. We had paper maps, but we needed to start digitizing, so we had a digitization lab that will scan 300 maps per week. Those maps need to then be, some of them will be geo-referenced, and we use the interns also to geo-reference some of those maps. But you can imagine the challenge of historic maps of Africa or California as an island, and how do you geo-reference those? It was quite challenging. We also did a lot of software and test support. I'm not going to go through those. It's the same thing that you have here. And then we offer this GIS facility. But I think what it was very encouraging is that then the other facilities that we had on campus that had GIS or needed GIS started modeling exactly the same configuration that we have for our computers. So that became part of our job. Fix bugs, make sure all the programs are compatible, everything runs well. In 2015, 2016, we added a new teaching center in one side of the library. There was a new combined science library, and then we had the David Ramsey Center as well. And so one thing that I thought it was important for us with all these demands was to make time for how do we promote innovation. We had you will see the difference between Clemson and Stanford. We had a very small salary in terms of what we can do with innovation. So we partnered with Google and the Google Earth Outreach team to get some tablets and things like that. We started playing with 3D data visualization, and then we did our own projects. So one of the projects is the campus-based map project. The other one I'll go more over in the afternoon is the mass shootings project. So it's not a fun topic, but you know, it was Sandy Hook happened. I said I could bear the news. I was sick at home, and I was like, I do maps. What can I do? I started creating a database. Newspapers got a hold of it, and it got very, very big very quickly. And then they just hired a part-time position to keep this database going as part of the library effort. So sometimes it's just, what can I do? And I make maps. How can I help with something like this? And I thought mapping, like going through newspapers, court cases, and I was just trying to get a database of, can it happen anywhere? And how does it happen over time? So I wanted to see the spatial temporal, and there was not a lot of it there. And so I'll talk more about it in the afternoon, but those are things that there's always a way that we can help, even if we think, well, I just do maps, right, or do GIS. And so this is another one of those initiatives that I'll be talking more in the afternoon. I was filling in for, there was a period of time where we didn't have a GIS lecturer, and so I took over that class. And through that class, I started collaborating with the United Nations. And so the GIS class will have those projects where we started collaborating with partners, and the partners in the UN, they were great as part of the GIS class, but it was a little bit too much. So what we decided is to create a full class just looking at this issue. I mean, this was also 2014, right? So in 2013 was the first project that we did on refugees with the UN, and it was when the Syrian war started there. So imagine, like, this is just 2013. We never knew it was going to be so bad, or, you know, same thing with mass shootings. Unfortunately, your hope is not. But we decided to just create a class, a service learning class, where GIS kind of took a sidestep. Like, GIS was going to be the technology that was going to help, but it was going to be much more than GIS. So we had people from the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. We have lawyers that are experts on immigration. We had, you know, judges that are part of, like, the California Supreme Court now, and, like, we have a lot of experts on the topic that will give the students enough background and information, so when they use GIS, it's kind of fitted in the right direction, in the right place. We use things like reflection, because I think a lot of times when we teach technologies like GIS, it's like go, go, go. You know, here's data, vector, raster, you know, geodatabases, projections, and it's like, to me, GIS, you know, and this is embarrassing to say, but it didn't come easy to me. I took time. I truly enjoy it. I love it, but it didn't come easy. And I think sometimes, I don't know if you have semesters or quarters. Semesters. At Stanford, we had quarters. I mean, I had literally 10 weeks to go from nothing to a big story map interactive with a project and spatial statistics, you know. So it was, we needed to incorporate things like reflection and things like that. And the feedback was excellent. It was a lot of work, but I will be talking more in the afternoon about GIS for good and service learning. So moving forward, I met my husband, my future husband, at Stanford in a GIS workshop. And so he was a postdoc, and then he got his assistant professor at Clemson, so we moved to Clemson. And so when I got there, the dean of the libraries was on their way out, and so there was not a real fit at the libraries per se. And so I came to IT, which was a whole new, it still feels kind of weird for me, but I kind of embraced it in a way that it was where the opportunity was. And one thing that Clemson is very good at is high performance computing. So big cluster, big processes. It has one of the best supercomputers in the country and in the world. So, and that was foreign for me. I helped desktop. I helped with ArcGIS. I never helped with like big processing, and everything you do starts with the command line. It's like, I'm a Windows person. And so it was a whole new world for me, but I think it was an opportunity. So I arrived there at the end of 2014, and so the moment I arrived, they know I kind of created a center, and there's talk about, you know, why don't we do a center? And so the CIO there was the previous CIO from Purdue. He had a lot of vision, and he was from NCSA as well. And so he put a lot of funds that the libraries match to make this geospatial center. And so the center at Clemson is located in the main library, which, you know, is a great space, but a lot of the librarians were quite unhappy with us. They've been asking for the training room forever. They don't get it, and all of a sudden we just come in there. So that was a little bit tough. Some of the librarians were like, on the opening day, were like, when are you leaving? So that was a little bit rough. But then I understood why were they, you know, why they felt the way they felt. So I'm going to show you very quickly what we do. At Clemson, you will see a little bit of a different vibe with, I'm going to introduce you to Gigi. So Gigi is one of the many things that we kind of incorporated. You will see an evolution from, so here's Gigi. It's only a minute. That's the library. That's supposed to be me, apparently. The students did this video. So this is like a 2-minute video that we like to play to say, what do we do? What can we do for you? So that's kind of some of the skills that our interns kind of acquire. It's, if you talk to them, what do you do this week? It's like, I was learning how to create a video. But I think it's a great opportunity for us to be able to use the tools that are available at the university and then put it into practice into things like this. So we wanted to do, it had to be less than 2 minutes. It had to be something that anybody at the university can understand. As you all know, it's very hard we still have departments that don't know we exist. And there's a lot of competition. We get into the main university calendar. We get into Clemson Inside, which is a publication. We put flyers. We even use Collector, which is a GIS application, to track where we're putting flyers on campus. Like we're trying to do our best, and still we know there are departments that haven't heard of us at all. And so we're trying to use new technologies or technologies that have been there but we traditionally haven't used in like geospatial centers or GIS centers. And so GIS is one example. Last year I was in this More Leadership program, like it's for IT but for libraries too. And so one of my colleagues at Berkeley, he used that for IT. What the IT desktop support can do at Berkeley, and I was like, that is genius. I'm going to copy that idea, and I did. And so that's kind of one of the evolutions that we have from the previous center. One thing that I learned through this More Leadership was I traveled last year to NCAR, and NCAR is the National Center for Atmospheric Research, and they were involved with the Nobel Prize for the climate change with Al Gore and all that. And so it was interesting that they were talking about it's not only good enough to do the science, we also need to communicate it. We need to let the public know. And then 2 weeks later, I traveled through this More Leadership program to Boston College, and the CIO is saying exactly the same thing. It's not about just doing good work and support. It's about people knowing about it. And so that's something that I try to integrate more and more. So social media, we need to be active in, although it's a pain, I know. But with Twitter, we tried Facebook, didn't work as great. We're trying Instagram. The website is your face to the world, right? And so you will see, why do we have something like ClemsonGIS.org? Because IT or the libraries were too restrict. We update this very often. I need the students to help me maintain. This is look just at services. We have a lot of content there, and my job is not to do website. My job is to do GIS, but I know this is important, so I cannot have this sophisticated or militarized style that doesn't allow me to show what I need to show. And so that's kind of what we are. Sometimes it's nice to be a part of a partnership because I'm like, well, you're not just my boss, they're too. And so I can play that a little bit. You're not recording that, right? I forgot. But things like we have equipment. This is a Faro LiDAR scanner. It's a tripod that you put, for example, in this room, you rotate and in 3 minutes you have a point cloud of the interior of the room. Those are things that, okay, can we integrate this into our website? We want to really promote it. It's $40,000 equipment that can have applications from historic preservation to design to planning and how do I get the word out? How do you even know that we have something like this? And so that's kind of what we put a lot of focus as well as just doing the work. How do we get the work out? So one thing that we did when I got there is that we had at Clemson a lot of GIS labs. So we had 7 GIS labs. I've never seen so many labs. Physical spaces, but we don't have anybody to support them. And so what I thought I was very excited about, and still are, it was to try to bring the best of IT with the best of the libraries and kind of create the center that it was truly a partnership. So the best of IT, without a doubt, was the advanced cyber infrastructure. And I'll show you more about it, but how can I ramp up the students from a desktop user Windows to being able to crunch big data, parallel processing, high performance computing, which it was a whole new world for me. And the other thing is that we still wanted to have that service and data-oriented component from the library. And so this was kind of the vision that we have, and this is what is different from like just a GIS lab. If it becomes a center, we can collaborate in grants. We help, we can be a support of grants. We help write. We can be co-PIs. I've been co-PIs in several of them. We can help with outreach. And then we can also collaborate in seed projects. So for example, we just got a bunch of faculty, I think it's at least 12 faculty, 14 faculty came together into an internal grant, an internal MRI grant, $140,000 drone with LiDAR. And so the faculty, the university puts half of the money, the faculty had to come in the departments with the other half. But that's $140,000 equipment that is coming here. So we're going to keep it. We have a UAV drone pilot that is going to be able to fly it for the faculty to go in projects with them. And so it takes away the burden of them of you need to be certified, you need to know the rules change all the time, the technology changes all the time, the batteries, only liability and insurance, we are paying $4,000 a year just to keep the equipment running. And so as part of GIS and geospatial, we are looking at, let me take care of the technology so that's not such a burden on you. You use it and apply it for research, and we'll help you with those. And one thing also that I think Clemson really stresses partnerships with industry. That was also a new world for me, same with grants. As part of the libraries, we couldn't charge for any of our services because then how can we ask for funds from centralized funds? Here it is a little bit different. We have the seed funds, and so what we do is, and I'll show you, we have several rates. Right now, like this semester, we're supporting 11 classes, so we can do 2 sessions per class for free. If they need 3 or more sessions, then we write a simple SLA that says, you know, like a $62 rate, like it will be $300 or something like that. Same thing with consultation. I mean, that is not because the money comes directly back to us, but it's because we need a way, a transparent way of say, why can I help you this much and why can I not help you more? Because just last year, there were some classes that we basically ran the entire class for them, but that means there are other classes that then we cannot support when we have to support 11 classes just per semester, plus consultations, plus workshops, plus projects and outreach, et cetera, et cetera. So this was kind of like the mission of the center. We really wanted to build the community. We want to have these practitioners, and the idea that we teach technology, for example, story maps or collector, the faculty learn it, embrace it, develop it themselves, and then what is the next thing that we can bring to the campus. And that's kind of the idea. Sorry. This is a little bit of the evolution. So started in 2015. So I arrived there in October 2014. 2015, I started with 2 interns. And then I had a libraries liaison and a metadata specialist. Then the vision kind of changed, and they say I should have a co-director that was a faculty member. So, you know, and forgive me to speak frankly about faculty. Faculty are a little bit different from staff, you know. Planning or operations or, you know, timelines is not. So it was a little bit of adjustment, but I think it was great. But it is still an adjustment, right? And so the reason for having a faculty member is a lot of times to talk to departments or to even know about these meetings or these grant collaborations is not easy for IT or for the libraries to really be on those meetings. And so basically, if you talk to him, his name is Stephen Moisey, and he's professor in earth sciences. His job is to have coffee. That's how he describes his job with our center. But he really brought a vision and you know, an outreach that I will have never imagined or I will have never been able. So I've been learning a lot too, and I've been exposed to things that I've never done before. So, but it was a little bit of adjustment. So imagine you have the libraries in IT and then a faculty member coming together, directing the server. We really needed a GIS manager at that point with all the demand. We also got a GIS developer, and then we got a GIS specialist, which is our UAV drone pilot, and then we got more interns. So this is kind of the center now after 2.5 years. This is where we are. And I'll tell you more about the pros and cons. Beyond staff, 2 things that we embrace are this GeoAmbassador program. So the GeoAmbassador program is anybody can teach GIS. So it doesn't need to be me or us all the time. So if there's a student who has been doing fantastic work with GIS, we help them, we review the materials, he tested with us, and then we provide the facilities, advertisement, all that, but then they are teaching because I might not be an expert in economics or in history like maybe a student there, and so we facilitate those. Same thing with PhD students that are about to graduate and looking for opportunities or even visiting scholars. And I can show you the page, but we keep we announce them too, and we give them a little bit of a certificate that says they taught those hours. And then the other thing that I thought was, I'm still struggling, so I'm really looking for suggestions. We created a student group called Clemson Mappers. So this is part of a large organization called Youth Mappers. I don't know if you heard about it. It's like 73 universities around the world. Basically what we do is like, Youth Mappers is like mapathons, what they call. It's mapping for good. It's using OpenStreetMap. You donate your time. You don't need to know GIS or mapping. You donate your time, and for half an hour, just map roads or buildings of places that had an earthquake or flooding. And so imagine the power of having all of these students around the world kind of doing this after an earthquake and say that building is down and like helping with emergency services. So that's what Clemson Mappers is. I just think they should be more, and they should adapt to what Clemson, the culture and what the students need. And so we're still evolving. The center will always support them because the students come and go. And so we do these mapathons, and we provide pizza because pizza is, what we bring people to donate their time, pizza and donuts. But we've done a few of those, and I just would like them to take off and become themselves without me kind of, handling their hand and say, oh, do a mapathon. What are you doing this semester? Or just things like that. So it's still a work in progress. This is a little bit of the facility. So we have 2 very nice facilities. This is how it looked. The training room at the top, it was where the library security office desks were. And so we took all that down, and we also left the original ceiling, which made it much more spacious. And then that's kind of how it looks now. Same green, kind of similar green. And then we have a big collaborative space. And we have a sandbox, like a real sandbox with sand. That, kids love it, but adults too, and students, especially students during exams, they love coming there and relaxing, moving the sand around. But we are offering more than GIS. That's what's geospatial. So we offer, this is augmented reality. We do a lot of tours. We also do virtual reality like HT Vive. And this, you cannot see it now, but we have a 3D screen. So as you move the sand, the water kind of moves and flows, and you can see that. We have 3D glasses, and you can see it also in a 3D screen. So it helps us a lot with like doing from basic intro to geography classes to tours with high schools and camps and stuff like that. Provided the services are very similar to what we had before, but things that we have changed is that we want to be a gateway to high performance computing. So from very basic GIS to very advanced, we want to, create that ramp that will help us get there. The Geospatial Data Portal Initiative is much weaker than it was at Stanford, less resources. Also, I'm staff that is part of IT, not the library, so it's a little bit hard. One thing that we offer is a certificate of attendance because there's no GIS program. If the students take like these 9 workshops, then we give them a certificate of attendance that allows them to, get internships, jobs, and positions. So we need to make sure it's attendance so we don't get in trouble with colleges or anybody. But and we'll have graduation on Friday with you. We just do a little ceremony and stuff like that. And then also one thing that is different is the grant support. So we really actively collaborate in grants, which I didn't explore that much. Yeah.
Time for questions and answers.
Oh, it's already 30 minutes. Sorry about that. Can I just speak there, and then I'll do one thing that I think is really unique is what we call the cyber GIS. Basically, and this is where we are that middle ground between the desktop GIS and the supercomputers. Imagine like your GIS lab, you have 20 computers. Imagine you have a big job. So any GIS job that takes more than 3 hours to run. What we do is that we split the data, and then we distribute it to her computers. And so instead of one computer crunching the data over 20, for like 3 hours, you divide it, and each one of them takes 5 minutes. So we can go from, some of our processes went from 3.5 days in a laptop or a computer, and it crashes, to 3 hours or less. And so we're trying to use those. The beauty of this is that it's not using any resources, extra resources. It's using the computers, using an open source program that says, oh, that GIS computer that has ArcGIS is not being used right now. Send a job, run it, tell me when it's ready, put them back. And so that's what I think, there's a lot of potential to do that, because there's a lot of GIS labs, and those computers are not used all the time. And so instead of using your computer and waiting there for 3 hours or 4 hours, as data becomes more available and bigger, we need to start thinking about these solutions. Of course, you have the high performance, but that means bye-bye to Windows. You need to be in R or Python, big programming. This is a middle ground that I think is very exciting, and I think it could be, and it's free, so you don't need anything extra. It also allows us, the students, to get a little bit of understanding of scripting, because we need to split the data and things like that and merge it back. So I'll leave it there, and then I'll take questions and answers, I think. I need to show you. Can I show you a project? Yeah. Okay. Let me show you the, well, actually I brought some brochures, but I think.
Hit this use slideshow, because we're, there we go.
Sorry. Well, actually I'm going to show you this project. So, and you can follow me also if you have a laptop or something, bit.ly, CU Campus. So this is the new version of that Stanford campus-based map project. So this is the Clemson version, the 2016-17 version. So this is a story map. We're going 3D, so actually this was using like SketchUp with the facade, but basically we have the entire campus in 3D. And so this is just like my candy, you know, this is a little bit about Clemson, but I think we wanted to test technology. So this is, for example, the safety survey. This is a survey where the students, we wanted to test survey 1, 2, 3. And so it was for a class, Women in Science and Engineering. We wanted to know where they feel unsafe on campus. And it was just for a class, but the reaction of the girls was so strong. It's like, we need this. There's this place on campus where I feel very unsafe. And so we just opened it up to, and so in my class I was teaching GIS for public health, and I had this guy like 6'5", 22 years old, and saying, look, I'm 6'3", and I get scared when I pass through here, so this is good. I was like, okay. And so we are trying to get as many, so this is just one of the templates that we have. So we have the individual responses, you know, that we can get, you know, why do you feel safe? What do you think that will be, you know, what could be done there? And then we can summarize those and say, look, go back to the administration and say, look, if there's only 3 places where you can put a new post lamp, these are the 3 places that, you know, and this is where the data comes from. It even gives you like word clouds, and I can see males versus females, undergraduates versus graduates and stuff like that. But I thought it was a great example. We also have this, sorry, what am I doing with your Mac? This search nearby, which we also wanted to test it because our Google Maps, I don't know exactly how bad your Google Map is or good. Ours is terrible. A lot of the buildings don't have names there. And so we created this, and we use cartography, very important cartography tools. And so it allows you to, anywhere on campus, like see what is, for example, within like this distance, and then I can look at bus stops or parking. And then, for example, if I want to go to this parking, it will calculate the directions to go there. Unfortunately, it doesn't work right now. Thank you, Esri. But we have interior routing. So our main building where we are in the libraries has 8,000 people a year. A day. And so we have this interior routing, which, you know, we're trying to fix it. Esri did something with the upgrade that is not working right now. But it tells you, like, you can find a room or an office, and it tells you how to go through the stairs or the elevator, the ADA access and all that. We also have a library book finder. So we had a student through community service that went and mapped all of the stacks. And so you can look, for example, okay, I'm looking for this entrance, and it will tell you which floor and where it is located, and it's interactive. This one, we use our developer. This is the library finder, which we work with the community services group to look at the top 50 questions that they get at the circulation desk. So scanners, printers, classrooms. And so you can see here that you can select the floor, for example. So on third floor, I'm going to look for classrooms and, for example, offices or study rooms. And then it's interactive and it takes you there. And so this one took a little bit of customization. Everything else is just straight out of the box. No. But this one we had to use just because we needed to select by floor and the filter and kind of make it work that way. One other thing that I want to show you is this historic Clemson, because we work with the special archives. And so we were looking at where Clemson buildings took their name, so a little bit of history, and then looking at the campus at the time. So they have, we work with the librarians to give us all these building facts. And then here you have, so this is the first building that we had, Harding Hall, and then you can see the perspective of where that photo was being taken. And right now it's not working, but let me show you the video. The video is what we really thought the software could do. So it's kind of looking at that perspective of the historic photo as it was taken at the time. And so the student kind of has to resize everything and looking at, this is the famous, we had a famous fire there. That's the fireman in front of the building. And so this was using ArcGIS Pro and like testing those 3D capabilities. So it's kind of a fun project that we want to give back to the libraries. They're giving us this amazing space. And so we always look for projects and say, let's do mapping of the library, interior of the library, and then we work with the special collections on that. And then the last thing that I want to show you here is the UAV services. So we flew one of our drones. So we have a fleet of 5 drones that we can use for projects. And so this is the point cloud. This is the small resolution of the drone. This is 500 million points that I'm putting here on this browser, and you can see it's going pretty well for how much data I'm pulling. The high resolution data is like 2 billion points, which we're now putting online. But from that, we've been able to create a process to do 3D printing of campus, and we're actually going to be giving away those 3D models based on the point cloud from the drone on GIS Day, and we're going to have a 3D coloring contest where people need to color the campus. So I think that's all I have right now. I think one thing that will be very good is my lessons learned. I have also, we did a project on geography of the elections. This was looking at big data and social media. We were getting tweets. This was way before when we had 17 candidates and it got too crazy. We didn't know. We needed a project that would say, okay, social media, and a project that everybody understood. So from biology to political science to geology, elections is a topic that everybody understood. And so we were able to get live stream data, live tweets every day as they happen. And then we started with more candidates, and this was the final project. And then maybe, Anna, I can show it to you later. I did some cataloging. So this is a historic map that we have of, I'll show it to you later. But this is a historic atlas map of historic cities. And then it has 6 volumes, and I have a story map for each one of the volumes. And the maps are absolutely gorgeous. So I think my lessons learned is like communication. In both cases, it's extremely important with our partners. So I have trouble right now because IT thinks they are not getting enough credit for what we do. They want to see branding that says IT. And so, that's always a problem, because I've been trying to work more with the library because, organizationally I belong to another, but now I will have never expected that IT is the one that is feeling, you're not promoting me. So it's a little bit tricky that way. Partnerships are definitely hard, but I think they're worth it. I think you have something very exciting with the Digital Scholarship Lab here, and I'm going to bring a lot of ideas there. Like I say, outreach and marketing, I think, are critical for what we do and what we offer. Follow-up on consultations and office hours. I think it's not only doing all these workshops. I focused a lot of that. Let's do a lot of workshops. The statistics look great when you do your reports, but then if you don't follow up, it fizzles down. The students don't know where to go. So I think it's very important to have those consultations and those office hours. Don't leave people on their own. We always get this pressure of put everything online, and my answer to that is like, yes, we need to put we offer like 33 different workshops right now. And yes, we need to put them online so they can review it and all that. But at the same time, Esri alone has beautiful online training. You have lynda.com. I cannot compete with that, and I don't want to compete with that. My value is in person, what I can bring. So I think a combination of those. But it's hard to resist that pressure of, well, why don't you do it online instead of doing this again and again? It's like there's a lot of things a student can get online, and I think my value is more what I can offer in person. And then I think it's very important always to have support from upper management. So, yeah, thank you.
We've got some time for questions.
Any questions?